London, 1998. The city was different then, slower, quieter, and seemingly safer. But that peace was shattered by a single, desperate phone call to the police. A woman's voice, trembling with fear, warned them that a murder was being planned. She gave names, flight numbers, and a location half a world away in India. She told them it could still be stopped. But the police didn't act. And because of that silence, a crime took place that didn't just haunt London, it shook an entire nation. This isn't just a true crime story. It's a descent into a darkness deeper than a moonless night, involving a family that looked perfect on the outside but was rotting from within. This is the story of Sarah Collins. Sarah grew up in London, caught between two worlds. Her parents had immigrated years prior, but their hearts remained tethered to strict, traditional values. While other girls her age were thinking about college and careers, Sarah's world was being built like a cage. At just 16, her parents told her she was to be married. Sarah begged them to let her study, to let her build a life of her own, but her voice was ignored. She was forced into a marriage with a man named David Miller, whose family was well respected in their community. Sarah moved into a house dominated by one person, her mother-in-law, Beatrice Miller. Beatrice was a pillar of the community, known for her religious devotion and leadership. But behind closed doors, she was a tyrant. Sarah was only 16, she didn't know how to run a household to Beatrice's impossible standards. Every small mistake was met with verbal abuse and physical violence. When Sarah turned to her husband for help, David simply told her, "I do what my mother says." Soon, he began joining in on the abuse. Sarah eventually reached out to her own parents, showing them the bruises, but they gave her the answer so many young women in these situations hear: be patient. Once you have a child, everything will change. In 1991, Sarah gave birth to a son. For a moment, she hoped for peace. Instead, the workload doubled, the sleep deprivation took hold, and the abuse escalated. If the baby cried at night, Beatrice would barge into the room to scream at Sarah for waking her. A few years later, David's younger brother brought home a new bride named Lisa. Lisa was kind and observant. It didn't take her long to see the nightmare Sarah was living. But the Miller family was a fortress of secrets. Desperate for an escape, Sarah secretly found a job as a customs agent at the airport. Those 8 hours at work were the only time she felt human. Her co-workers became her lifeline, telling her what she already knew: you have a job. You have a child. You deserve to be free. Sarah tried to leave. She took her child and moved into a small apartment. But David hunted her down, promising they would live in their own house, away from his mother. Sarah, wanting to believe in her family, agreed. But the control only tightened. David became paranoid, accusing Sarah of affairs because she worked outside the home. By 1998, Sarah had reached her breaking point. She asked for a divorce. To the Millers, this wasn't just a legal matter, it was a stain on their honor that could only be washed away with blood. Beatrice called a secret family meeting. David, his brother, and even a reluctant Lisa were there. Beatrice announced the plan: Sarah would be taken to India under the guise of attending a family wedding, and she would never return. Lisa was terrified. She wanted to warn Sarah but was threatened with the same fate. On December 3, 1998, just hours before the flight, Lisa made a desperate, anonymous call to a crime tip line. She gave every detail. She even wrote a letter to the local police station. But the system failed. No one checked the flight. No one stopped the car. Lisa watched from the window as Sarah hugged her children goodbye and got into a car with Beatrice. It was the last time she would ever see Sarah alive. 2 weeks later, Beatrice returned to London alone. She told the community Sarah had run away with a lover in India. But privately, in a moment of chilling pride, she confessed the truth to Lisa. She described how Sarah had been drugged during a car ride, strangled, and her body thrown into a river. Beatrice believed she had committed the perfect crime. For years, the Miller family lived as if nothing happened. David even tried to claim Sarah's life insurance. But Sarah's friends and her brother never stopped fighting. They pressured the government and the police to keep the file open. Meanwhile, Lisa was living in her own hell. The abuse from the family eventually led to a mental breakdown. But when she finally got away and found safety with her own father, the truth poured out. With Lisa's testimony, the British police reopened the case in 2005. In a landmark trial in 2007, Lisa stood bravely in court for 3 days. She became one of the first women in the UK to testify against her own family in an honor-killing case. Because of her courage, Beatrice and David were both sentenced to life in prison. The tragedy remains that the men who actually carried out the murder in India were never caught. They remain free to this day. Lisa eventually rebuilt her life. She changed her career, dedicated herself to helping victims of domestic violence, and wrote a book to ensure Sarah's name would never be forgotten. Sarah Collins was a girl who just wanted to learn and to love. Her story is a haunting reminder of the darkness that can hide behind a perfect family's front door, and the incredible courage it takes to finally bring that darkness into the light.